And I'll be presenting visual structuring for generative design sort spaces. Actually, before anything else, I would like to say that it was my and my supervisor's first thesis work, and we would like to present it to you right now. Primarily, I would like to talk about the focus of this research. Basically, this research focuses on design space exploration, the visualization of design solution space in generative systems, and the management of complex design sort spaces from a design point of view. The design point of view phrase is so important because it signifies a human-centric attitude to design field. When we move to the facts, with the rise in computational strategies in design and architecture as well, the design act, the design artifact, and the involvement of designer through the design synthesis processes have been changing. Primarily, in non-computational design processes, generally design source space is formed manually by the designer. However, with the proliferation in automated generation technologies and methods in digital design systems, the act of design has changed to act of generating, and the design as an artifact, it was just a sole end result at the beginning in non-computational design processes. It turned to be a design as a process. And this whole changes in the methods and the understanding of design has also changed from multiple design solutions, enlarged, broadened, or dense the design search spaces. Accordingly, we observe the changes in the interaction between the designer and the design process. It was not that flat to visually interact with design processes as it was in non-computational design processes. So, when we move on to concerns of this research, basically we should say that this is the design space exploration problem as well as the complexity management problem and the representation of design sort space. So, according to these concerns, we see the decrease in visuality due to generation methods and processes. So, due to this decrease in visuality, we see the decrease in designer actions in design processes because we're calling visuality is important because as we know that visuality, visual representations, especially analog representations, are the main medium for designers to interact with the design solution, design problem, and also the design process. So the visuality as a keyword is much more prominent within the scope of this paper. So when we move on to main problems, according to those facts, concerns, at the end of the first phase of the research, we just made two major points about the main problems of this paper. The first one is the broad design spaces of generating design systems, as I stated before, due to the automated generation methods. The second one is the elimination of designer decisions and evaluation from the design artifact due to automated generation process. These are the two major points that I would like to highlight within the scope. So according to these two problems, we are proposing visual structuring as a method to manage the complexity in design sort spaces, as well as we are proposing visual structures as a method for designers to visually interact with the process. Before anything else, I would like to say that this paper stands much more in the theoretical part. So the visual structures, three methods of visual structures that I'll be going to presenting in a minute, would have been implemented, but this will be kind of a work for future implication, let's say. So, what is visual structuring? Basically, as it is written here, visual structuring is to give a structure to the design search space that guides the interrelations between the design instances based on visual resemblance as a structural criterion. Resemblance is the key word here because it is chosen as a fundamental conception due to the Rudolf Arnheim's, one of the major one of the major work, which is Visual Thinking, which was published in 1969. So according to Rudolf Arnheim, he is advocating that the forming categories is one of the major ability of human cognition on the basis of resemblance, especially the visual resemblance, the formal perception that is gathered, obtained out of objects. So within the scope of this paper, resemblance is chosen as a keyword, as a main criterion for clustering, let's say, clustering behavior or strategy. In resemblance to generative design systems, resemblance play a crucial role because according to John Holland's and Murray Gell-Mann's major works, they are stating that the algorithms, the descriptions of the process are producing schemes, internal structures, which is inherited to all objects of a family, of a design family. One of them may be the formal characteristics, one of them may be the internal structure that is exposed by the complexity or the attributes that can be gathered out of these complexity structures. So in relation to resemblance, we're stating that the internal structure, the schema of the process, of the algorithm, correlates visual similarity and resemblance between the end results of the generation process. Particularly, we are concentrating on genetic algorithms, the evolutionary generative systems. So, according to this visual structuring strategy, we're proposing 3 methods. The first one is perception-based, second one is retrieval-based, third one is optimality-based. Beforehand, I would like to say that besides those methods, it is possible to approach from several points of view to this problem. So we can add much more methods much more visual structuring methods, much more visualizing methods to these propositions. But within the scope of this paper, we're going to discuss these 3 methods. But beforehand, I would like to explain the model of interaction which is proposed. In first 2 squares, you're seeing the mainstream generation process of generative design systems. We're having a designer as an initiation of the process by determining the boundary conditions, instructions, and the restraints throughout the generation process. Then, after he's alphanumerically representing the inputs, the generation starts within regard to evaluation by the help of feedback mechanism, as we all know. Up until this part, it is okay. The designer stands at the beginning of the process. But the thing we would like to express is the designer cannot penetrate throughout, visually, cannot penetrate throughout this generation process. Therefore, to facilitate visual integration of this designer throughout this process, we are posing the visual structuring methods here, visual representation of design individuals. According to these implementations, the designer will have a chance to visually evaluate the end results, which will be, dense process, but several limiting implementations may facilitate also this evaluation part. So, the major aim for these structures is primarily to mediate between design generation and the subjectivity of the creative design by the amplification of the designer's involvement in design synthesis via providing visual guidance. And the second one is, as I told before, to manage the complexity of large, dense, or expanded design search spaces, whatever we may call. When we move on to perception-based, this is the first proposed visual structuring method. Perception-based structuring is intuitive, case-based, observer-dependent, therefore subjective act of structuring design search space. From you can understand the title of it, it is based on designer's perception and identification of common features, visual resemblance between the design instances. So it requires manual build-up, and this may be applicable much more, we can say, the manageable and small design search spaces. Otherwise, it will be a tough job for a designer to eliminate or evaluate one by one all design instances. So to apply this visual structuring method to refine search spaces will be much more in use and applicable. So, as a process, the designer identifies the hierarchical resemblance relationships between design instances and group them according to their visual similarity. That's perception-based. We conducted a little research about that. We gave 110 genetically generated, design instances, and 3 designers cluster them separately. So one of them grouped it according to their chair legs, one of them backrest. So each designer understands the hierarchical resemblance relationship differently. So I should wrap it up, the thing. So retrieval-based, when we come here, retrieval-based structuring is based on the exploitation of 3D object retrieval methods, which is largely exploited in 3D repository-based modeling programs. It's an objective filtration method and potential to identify the similarities between the design instances. Primarily, the designer should define the similarity object, then the process continues as you see in the diagram. And for optimality-based, it is an objective filtration method, and we are proposing McCandlish's latest research about design search space hill climbing method for this optimality-based structures. We are addressing that the clusters, the design instances that are located on same peaks would share similar, visually similar structures and the formal ability attributes, let's say. So the clustering is also based on the similarities. And when we compare and contrast these 3 methods, we see that perception-based should be used for small design search spaces, and retrieval-based and optimality-based could be applicable for both small and large. Optimality-based is not sorted, but the perception and retrieval-based are hierarchical. Just perception-based is subjective, and retrieval and optimality-based are objective. Perception-based is manually built, the other ones are automated. Perception-based can be used filtered or not filtered, but retrieval and optimality-based should proceed to filtration. One outcome out of this research is resemblance. We can use resemblance as a keyword for perception of similar feature in a design set, maybe a criteria, grouping criteria, an operational method to build up visual structures. And the last one is subjectivity. As we all know, this subjectivity as an attitude of a designer pose a little challenge in generative design systems. So in order to enhance the subjectivity in creative design, maybe we should make the transparency, we should increase the transparency in generative design processes. And thanks for listening. I hope I'm on time.
Yes.
Thank you very much.